is interfering with main power. Switching to luxurious. I can't stop it. It's going to.
We give ourselves one more chance. Why can't we give love one more chance? Why can't we give love, 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 give love? 'Cause love's such an old-fashioned cry, and love dares you to care for the people of the edge of the light, and love dares you to change our way of caring about ourselves. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure.
Wrapping up this episode, I would be remiss if I didn't award this a Lazarus of the Week for the entire crew, considering they all died twice, but were then brought back because it never actually happened, and I'm my own grandpa. The episode is not without its critics, partly because the plot is very complicated to follow, and it's a real forerunner of the excessive technobabble that will permeate Voyager. And this is not an unfair accusation. Besides the tech, the rationale behind the technical plot is full of holes. We're told the reason the anomaly gets larger the further into the past you go is because anti-time works opposite normal time, so the effects travel backwards rather than forwards. Except, why is the anti-time part of it responsible for the direction and not the time part? And also, the events don't conform to that either. Their own reasoning is that the anomaly is created, and then it occurs backwards in time, except it wasn't there when they arrived. Instead, it appears when they show up later, which would be before its creation from that point of view of traveling backwards. The entire point of this whole thing is for Picard to see the paradox of effect preceding cause, rather than the other way around as it normally is. Remember, spotting the paradox is the whole point of the test. So the anomaly was supposed to be there first. You might argue that it was too small to detect, but that still doesn't explain why it was there later, before it was created, and large enough to fly their ship into, no less. Logically, if it was growing larger in both directions of time, that could explain why it was there, but it would have been mere hours later when they showed up. Essentially, the whole time logic thing reminds me of a line from a Terry Pratchett book, paraphrased, "Yeah, it's always been there, but was it always there yesterday?" That's not even getting into the lack of continuity between the time periods, with the sole exception of their beams that caused the whole problem. But while it struggles with its own tech logic, the episode more than makes up for it with its drama, performances, even the editing's directional continuity. The transitions happen in many cases when Picard activates a view screen or walks through a doorway. He's often doing the same thing in both periods when he jumps between moments. And this episode shows how far both Q and Picard have come, both in their arrogance and their evolution from adversaries to grudging respect. This episode earns the award that it was given, and I give it a score of 10 out of 10. This episode combines Moore's tapestry with Braga's parallels and makes it more than the sum of its parts. Q is presented as the higher life form whose torments ultimately lead to a greater lesson in self-discovery, and the different periods remind us where we've been and consider where we might be going. Looking back on The Next Generation, it started as a very unimpressive show, and it's down to a very frustrating case of falling between two stools. On the one hand, it had an approach to storylines like the original series had, which gave it something of a dated feel. There are times in the first two seasons where you might conflate whether or not it was Picard or Kirk who dealt with a problem. But what's far worse is the effort wasn't made to build the same relationship with the audience that the original series cast had done. There was an overall lack of humility and clueless disconnects from modern viewers. While some notable exceptions came along, which funny enough are usually the ones where human failure plays a significant role, the conceit of the measure of a man, the arrogance of Q-Who, the blindness of home soil. It wasn't until the third season's soft reboot that the show became its own, significantly helped by Michael Pillar's leadership in the writer's room. It was after this that the show truly became known for its quality storytelling. Yes, the occasional dud would come along, but it consistently produced much better television because it usually put the characters' humanity, for lack of a better term in some cases, in the foreground. What's notable is that Deep Space Nine was also a tremendously good show, filled with brave storytelling choices, sophisticated ideas, a willingness to ask uncomfortable questions. Deep Space Nine stands alongside its distinguished competition of Babylon 5. With Katsoulis and Meanie both being in this episode, it was the one time when those shows were on the air that a regular from both series appeared in the same TV episode. Also, Firefly and Stargate SG-1 joined those two, popular science fiction works, but largely known inside that community rather than outside. People might see Serenity or pick up a direct-to-video movie, but the quality of the programs nevertheless didn't allow for mainstream success. But TNG is very different. Like the original series, the characters became pop culture icons. People who knew Kirk and Spock also knew Picard and Data. One of the foundational elements of internet culture is a song composed of bits of Picard's dialogue. It got 4 movies, 1 a major hit. Success is one thing. Escaping the speculative fiction ghetto is a very special form of it. The series ended when it should have. Yes, Season 7 had its problems, but there were enough good ones to see that it still was making it, but was ready to finish. And going out on a high is the right call. Instead of descending into mediocrity, we got to finish in a blaze of glory that left the audience wanting more, and that's always the way a good show should end. The melancholy acceptance that nothing can last forever, but the lump in the throat when the final bow arrives.
Where is the anomaly?
Where's your mommy? Well, I don't know.